The sun is coming, yes. I feel the sun coming. All right, but we got to get moving.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so we have these two paths, sin, Satan, and the devil, and the forces of matter of the last solar system. And we can be swept along by these energies, and we probably know what it's like for that to happen. When this is the case, the man is a victim of his own form energies and the matter aspect of all manifestation. So here, when it's in red, it comes from these are two other classes, green and red, and you are orange in this class. So I will insert that. In the other case, he is the intelligent ruler controlling his own destinies. Interesting. Because he has multiple personalities, so he has multiple destinies. And swings the lower energies into forms and activities through which the power of his mind impulses and the focused attention of his own soul. Through the power of his mind impulses. And so we have a choice. Will we be soul controlled, or will we be controlled by the elemental life which is so powerful? And then Anna was saying, it's so powerful. Look in the personality of the earth, of the planet itself. Look what is happening in the elemental nature. And maybe there are explosions going on the astral plane. He said during the war on the physical plane was nothing compared to the war on the astral plane. Those kinds of explosions going on. Okay. Okay. In the 6 rules already considered, 1 or 2 thoughts most clearly emerge and might be summed up in the following terms. Okay, so now he gives us this very brief little epitome of each rule. Rule 1, recollection resulting in concentration. The solar angel collects himself, scatters not his force, but in meditation deep communicates with his reflection. Recollection. Number 2, response, resulting in the interaction between the higher and the lower. Do you ever feel like you're in a dialogue with your own soul? Because it is a real thing. That Gemini thing is a real thing. Yes?
Do you think recollection also might be far memory?
You
know what I mean?
It could be because recollection actually is in Rule 2. But what he says, he differentiates there between recollection and memory. He says, let recollection cease and let memory rule. So this is interesting. In other words, you've got the pattern in you. It's built into you after many lives, but you have forgotten all the little building blocks of how you got that memory. In other words, you don't collect all those old experiences together. You just have the harvest of the experiences. Yeah. So how does it go? Let the word go forth. Accepted as a group. Accepted as a group. Yeah. How does it go? I'm just going to look at that for a second. Yeah, right here. Okay. Accepted as a group. Okay, accepted as a group. Here it is. The word has now gone forth from the great point of tension, accepted as a group. Now that's a step for all of us if we ever were to really get into group form. Withdraw not now your application, you could not if you would, but add to it 3 great demands and forward move. Let there be no recollection, and yet let memory rule. So the harvest of all of our experiences is with us. It's built in. But we do not recollect where we got them. Maybe one day we would or could when we review our lives. Maybe we could.
Sometimes we do.
Sometimes you say?
Sometimes.
Sometimes it comes, yeah. But I guess what he's trying to say here is streamline your life. So don't get caught up in all of the circumstances where you learn these things. Instead, just walk away with the learning. I think that's what he's saying here. Now just think of it. We've been going for millions of years, all of us. And we have a huge amount of learning built into us, and we don't even know where it came from. Maybe one day in the future we'll go back like the Buddha and see it all. See where everything came from exactly. When we can stand to see the movie. You know what I mean? I've often thought about the movie of all my lives, XXXXX. And I thought to myself, well, fortunately, like I said, you're the only one in the theater. There was this movie with Kirk Douglas called Illusion. And it's all about the Akashic records. It's really funny because he's dead or half dead, and these other dead people are up there, and they have all the big film canisters in the projection booth, and it's all the records. It's all the records. So Kirk Douglas is sitting alone in the movie house, and they're showing him all his past, experiences and lives. And I think that we all get to review all of our experiences in any one life, and later in all of them. And I think we are alone in the movie house, as it were. Letting the how long can the movie last? 1,000 years, whatever. Actually, I think the film goes by very quickly, so you can probably assimilate a great deal in a short amount of time. But I don't know how many of us would like to watch the movie of our life. No. I had a nightmare when I was 2 years old that I was doing exactly that I was watching the movie of my life. And I realized it was some kind of recall, of some kind of Akashic thing. And I never found it too agreeable experience. I thought you had to be pretty strong to watch the movie of your life, or the movie of your lives. Then you have to be really strong. I remember when DK said to one of his high disciples, relatively high she was, he said, you would be amazed to find yourself where you are now, considering where you were 5 lives ago. He said. So, I don't know, did she ask him, what do you mean, Master, by that? Probably he just meant the thought to come across. I don't think he was going to go into the details, but he could see it, where she was, and she had made a lot of progress, apparently. Yeah.
Isn't there a certain point where it's enough the group learns, and then you learn from the group? You don't have to get the experience personally.
Oh, really? Fantastic.
I figure he tells us in the New Esoteric Schools, sanctioned methods of past life recall will be taught. But I think there's such a thing as getting so much into it. See, in other words, the only reason to do that is to improve your instrument at present. That would be the only motive. And if you get back into it so that you're living your whole life in what you think you were, that is an abuse of the ability. So we don't really need all that. We just need enough to straighten us out in the moment. A lot of us, that's where Scientology comes in. It's kind of interesting. There's all kinds of abuses with this Scientology thing. But they got a hold of a very interesting idea. Namely, that we have hang-ups that are caused by past life experiences, and we haven't resolved those karmic knots. So then they get this kind of machine or auditor or whatever it is, and they say, well, if you work with this auditor for a big sum of money, you can untie your karmic knots. So they make it seem like you can do it with machinery. But in fact, if you're going to untie your karmic knots, it's got to be done in consciousness and not with a machine. Okay. So they have the right idea and the wrong approach, as far as I can see. We all have karmic knots, and we are carrying with us a lot of things that are not resolved, and we don't know where they started. And we might one day, under Scorpio or Pluto or second initiation or whatever, we might go in search of some of those karmic knots. And if we do, we have to have a strong stomach, He tells us, don't follow your dream life too strongly, because it will bring up a lot of past incarnations, and you may not know how to handle that. He tells us that in esoteric psychology. So, we're playing the real game here, and it's a lot tougher than we think when we get into it. We open the door and there's the light and everything's wonderful. And then the farther we go, like Master Moria says, so much enthusiasm on the first steps and so much huffing and puffing, labor on the last steps. So, this is what faces us. But if we can face this cheerfully, okay. So response comes in at the second, when the shadow hath responded in meditation deep, the work proceedeth. The lower light is thrown upward, the greater light illuminates the three, and the work of the four proceedeth. It results in an interaction between higher and lower. So I go into my closet and I talk to my soul. That kind of thing. And the soul talks to me. And we have a Mercury-Gemini thing going on here. We call this having a conversation with your conscience, for instance. That's one way it works out. What should I do? Well, the conscience says one thing, and your desires may say something else. Have you ever been in one of those conversations? You know what I mean? It's a normal thing. It's a normal thing, but here he puts it in a way we can understand what's really happening. Radiation resulting in a sounding forth. The energy circulates. The point of light, the product of the labors of the three, waxeth and groweth. The man breathes deeply. Is the second sound going forth here? Yeah. The fires grow dim, yeah. The light recedes, the fires grow dim, then shall the second sound go forth. What is the second sounding forth? You're doing it all the time. You are reinforcing your creative purpose with your own sounding of the sacred word. You are putting your energies as a personality behind the creation that you should be making. Okay? In other words, the soul gave you an idea. An idea is growing. You're thinking back and forth. Now you, the human being on the physical plane, sound with power the sacred word to reinforce the growth of the creative thought form, the created thought form that's coming to birth on the mental plane. That's the second sound going forth. You get behind it as a person. Then comes respiration. DK is such a great teacher. Basically, have you ever noticed how he's got these R, D, 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 I, whatever? He realizes how the memory works. Memory works through the repetition of similarities. So he gives you what's called mnemonics, or methods of memorizing these things. You've got 6 R's here. That should somehow make it easier to get, right? What is it? You know the D's, don't you? The D's. Let's say discipline, passion, discrimination, detachment, decentralization. Those are all the big D words. See, he gives them to you. He gives you some I words. What are the I words? What's the I? Of course, is a hint.
Intellect.
Yeah. Okay, but you start. Yeah, exactly. But you want to start at the beginning with them, where he starts with like individualization. Then he goes with intellect. Then intuition. Then initiation. Then identification. I. Okay. So those are methods whereby we can fix these things in our brain. We need to do that. So respiration, the man breathes deeply and drives the thought form forth onto the mental plane, where now he's going to work on it. It's no longer right in his aura. It's driven forth. Now he can contemplate it objectively and get ready for its going down onto the other planes. Reunion. I don't know why he uses the word reunion. This is a tough one. But this is where 3 things are engaging the solar angel. Maybe you reunite with the solar angel, who is making sure your waters are in good shape, the condition of the waters, your safety so you don't get swallowed up by those devas, and then heart, throat, and eye, steady contemplation. He calls this reunion, resulting in the at-one-ment. That's a little difficult to see how that works out. That's the hardest of these, I think. Then Rule 6 is reorientation, resulting in a clear vision of the plan. That's where he says, the devas of the lower four feel the force when the eye opens. They are driven forth and lose their master. So I think you are reoriented away from the personality as your leader. And now the soul, you as the soul, become the definite leader at this point. So study those words, 6 of them, and we could try to come up with our own interpretation. Some are very easy. Recollection, solar angel goes, here's my forces, I'm getting ready to meditate. Response, the personality responds. Radiation, I sound forth the word. Respiration, I breathe and I drive the thought form from me, but the last 2 are harder. A little harder.
Reunion must be going back to the source. And
Reunion.
One with the source, and that's protection as well.
Yes, that is a good point, and I believe you're correct on that. And then reorientation, and later maybe he'll give us some other mnemonics to do this. Okay. Students would do well to consider these relationships and to work out. Yeah, obviously DK has given us some homework. I can just see how it's going to be in the new schools. You know, you're not going to be told exactly what to do. You're going to be given hints, and then, you know, take it back to your room and work it out. You've seen some of those models of the new schools, the advanced schools, have you? They're built, you know, inside a square, and there's a garden in there. And there's 4 entrances into the square, and then there's a circle. And the circle has 24 rooms in it, around a central teaching chamber. And if you're a student in one of those advanced schools, there's only 24 of you. That's it. That's the maximum. And you get your own room. And your room is divided into an area for meditation and an area just for your normal living and sleeping and washing and so forth. And in your meditation room, you have a mat on the floor. So that kind of tells you that we're going to have to sit down on mats. And it has your signs of the zodiac on it. And then in front of you, you have some sort of curtain, and it has your rays on it. Not for a moment are you allowed to forget the signs of the zodiac which rule you, or the rays which rule you. And then in everybody's room are the pictures of the masters with veils over them, curtains. And only when you're meditating on them are you allowed to lift the curtain, and otherwise the veil goes back. So,
where did you get that from?
What is it?
Where did you get that
Well,
from?
it's right in Letters on Occult Meditation. Yeah. He deals with this, and
Is it the sun sign or the rising sign?
it may be both. I'm sure the rising sign is involved. He tells exactly, and I may have forgotten exactly what it is, but if I go to this page.
When are they going to sort of come about then?
Well, you know, we're working on it now, but you have to start with small steps. And the small steps is to educate whoever you can.
And see who rises through the ranks, so that you've got your 24?
Well, yes, and remember that the preparatory schools are hard enough. We can't even make a real preparatory school yet. But then, whoever graduates from the other this kind of school will be able to go into the advanced school. And he says you can spend 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, or 7 years in a preparatory school. Now, for some reason, it's right here somewhere, and I'm getting there. I know I'm getting there. This is a very tedious method, but maybe I'm just not. But I think you'll find it very interesting. If I could just find the master's pictures. There you go. There's one. Maybe 3. Okay, there were 3 divisions. Each room will be non-communicating. In other words, you can't run into another student's room without being seen. This is very good. Okay, each room must be non-communicating save with the central corridor, and must be found in 3 divisions, necessarily small yet distinct. One division will be given up to the student's life and study, another to the bath, and the third will be the place for meditation containing the pictures of the great ones, duly curtained. This third division is kept for the sole purpose of meditation and will contain little save the mat on which the student sits and a couch on which he will repose his physical vehicle during certain stated exercises and a small stool in front of the master's pictures.
Sounds very monkish, doesn't it?
Yes, Mimi, well, you have a little bit of time to get used to it. Maybe not much. It is very monkish, isn't it?
Oh dear.
I mean, what happened to all the fun at my former incarnation? There you have it, folks. That's it. That's the advanced school, and notice, this is interesting. Actually, I see that the 4 gates of Shambhala here only have one entrance into the square. Okay. 4 entrances into the wheel, but 1 into the square. Here are the 24 students. And here are the 3 teachers. And here is whomever this may be. And here are different kinds of displays relating to the teaching in general, 9 of them. And these are your rooms divided into 3 sections, for the bath, for study, and for meditation. So I assume that is aspects 1, 2, and 3. Now, you didn't know it, but this is what you're training for in a class like this, you see. This is home. This is coming later, of course. It may be in 1 incarnation or it may be in 2. And a lot of people say, those old-fashioned ideas of Master DK, it's not going to be that way at all. This is far too monkish or whatever. Everything.
There's a bath, which, I mean, in previous incarnations, I'm sure that there haven't been baths.
Yeah, that's right. There haven't been baths, exactly. At least there's a bath. That's good. He doesn't divide the rooms here the way, he talks about it here, but he doesn't divide it. But these are actually fairly big, fairly big areas. And there's only one way in, I think.
One way out.
Well, look, think about it. You can be in a preparatory school if you're very experienced, maybe 1 year. The average stay may be 3 years in a preparatory school, or for some 5 or 7 years could be. And then this operation will last about 3 years. And it will lead directly to the 3rd initiation. This is not playing games. This is the real thing.
It looks like a chart.
Yes?
The apex of the instruction room, pointing at the beginning of the, of the division between areas and vices.
Yeah, something.
Rising.
Yeah.
Like rising.
Yeah. It's interesting. I don't know why they don't have it reversed like our charts, unless this is a chart for the southern hemisphere. Yeah, but there are, 24 is the number of Shambhala. And this is a school given to Shambhalic studies. This is the advanced school. This is the will school. When it comes to the other schools, they are much looser in how they are put together. He has certain requirements, but there's no structural requirement, except that the director will have a house by themselves, and there will be 10 profound students of meditation who are the main teachers. And then there will be a bunch of specialized teachers teaching all the different subjects. So in a way, we're slowly working towards that model in the Maurya Federation. Slowly, we can't rush it because we're probably some centuries ahead of ourselves here. But in the same way that hierarchy did not expect mankind to discover atomic energy until the age of Capricorn, 2,300 years from now, so in the same way, we can do things earlier than anticipated if we really focus on doing it. So this is, to me, this presents huge opportunity because, look, who's here? The Master is right here. The Master is behind this whole thing. every school will have supervision by a master. And every student, every year, will be reviewed by the master, not just by the head of the department. So this is going to be, you might as well get used to it. Of course, there's time for exercise and gardening and all the rest of it. You go to sleep at 10, you wake up at 5, you have all of these inner experiments. It's going to be the real education. Yes?
But it is not the way for all people, all people.
No, this is only, first of all, even initiation is not for all people. There is a slow way up the mountain for the average human being who doesn't want to participate. Everybody gets lifted, right? But for the aspirant for initiation, there is a rapid path. And these 14 schools, 7 advanced and 7 preparatory, are for those who are really forging ahead and are really determined on the initiation process and on affiliation with the ashram and on service. So it requires some degree of sacrifice. Now many of us, of course, we're planning more for our next life than for this one, or for the life after that, if you think about it. Because the world has so much to go through first. And these schools really only begin to appear when the Christ has made his reappearance. The real ones. The real ones. The masters will be working with us directly in person, many of them, and the Christ will be here, and these schools will therefore be protected. And people will be looking to the Christ and to his masters for advice, even. We're told that every nation will look to the masters and their students for advice in political, economic, and other social issues. We're not exactly there yet, are we? No.
I'm happy I'm not finished with my house yet. Now I see if I can incorporate some of these ideas.
Oh, okay. I don't doubt it.
Not really that one, but your room.
The rooms, exactly. The rooms are simply divided according to the nature of the human being. The first aspect, second aspect, and third aspect. So, I don't know. I find this exciting, and I'm not worried about whether it puts me out of commission for 5 years or even 10 years, in terms of the world.
Though, that there's nothing else to do but to study. I mean, it's wonderful, isn't it?
It's wonderful. Probably, he says at first with the preparatory schools that the students will be somewhat self-supporting. This is how he describes it. Which is reasonable at first, of course. Okay. And so here is our rule number 7. And it says, upon the astral plane, the thought form must now function. It's going to move down from the mental plane to the astral plane. We got a great idea, but many great ideas die on the mental plane. Why? Nobody wants to do them. Nobody desires to see them take place. Great idea. Oh yeah. And you just leave it be, and nothing happens. It doesn't get an astral body. The idea doesn't get an astral body. Okay. The energy of a body must be provided so it can move down to the astral plane. The energy of desire enters it, and he who meditates has to energize the form with one of 2 types of force before it passes into objectivity. What is objectivity? Oh, that's a Russian word. Okay. That's what happens when you start typing 1 over. Objectivity is etheric physical. So before we get to the etheric physical stage, the thought form has to be energized by one of 2 types of force. What do you think that's going to be? We've just been talking about it.
Yes, soul from the soul, or
Either
from the higher source or from the lower source.
Exactly. Very simply that. Upon the action depends the construction of the etheric body and the consequent physical manifestation. A thought form will have all of these vehicles just like we do. And eventually, instead of us having to use our hands and our feet to make an idea happen, you know, I'll call you and I'll have a meeting, we'll do this. You think it will get its vehicles, and it will generate its own forms. It will be a power center making things happen in accordance with its nature, and you will not have to run around making it happen.
Surely, though, doesn't it have to enter the imaginations of the masses? I mean, if it's to do with mankind altogether,
yeah.
It's for the good of mankind, surely it must be an idea that enters the imagination.
Sure. The imagination, the mind, and all that, and it'll do it on its own power.
Oh, right.
And then they will be the hands and feet that carry it out.
Okay.
But you, the creator of the idea, will be able to stand back and know that it has its own power and can do it. Now, we're not there yet. If we want an idea to happen, we pretty much, even though it's a good idea, we have to use our hands, have to use our feet, have to make it happen.
So the deva is actually the holder of the form, of the thought form.
Yes, and let's take a look at what he means here, because it's kind of interesting. This point is little realized by the average thinker, but the parallel with his own life experience is exact, as is the correspondence with the cosmic process. The nature of the deva, as it is called, enters in, and upon the quality of its love nature. Now we're going to see, interestingly, who the deva is, and the specific type of that which is the object of love will depend the nature of the thought form. Now he's really defining, in this case, he's saying there's a parallel in his own life, and the deva is the solar angel. The deva is either a solar angel who is temporarily fascinated with the world and wants objectivity, or it's a solar angel whose process is more advanced and it wants to be free from the world because it doesn't desire all the elemental stuff anymore. So if DK were looking at us and he would say, by what kind of deva are we animated? We could probably say, well, we're in the world, but we don't want so much from the world. We want to be able to make a difference for the world. We're not in this business of getting stuff, unless it has a purpose. We're not accumulating like they did in old Atlantis under the impulse of greed, luxury, and all the rest. They wanted the world. I assume that we may still want little parts of the world, but in general, we don't want the world per se. We want something else. Okay, so if the deva or solar angel, and I'm going to say that part of the great solar angel which is invested in the egoic lotus, if the deva or solar angel is as yet in love with manifestation and has a desire for objective existence, thus identifying himself with substance, saying, oh, this is me and this is me, it's an extroverted deva. He's turned out and says, I am all of this material, and he forgets his own nature. In other words, what we really have here, this is really the soul in incarnation. That's who he's talking about. The deva or solar angel. You are the soul in incarnation, and if you are identifying with a bunch of stuff, then you're going to reincarnate over and over, because that's what you want. And desire will lead you to whatever you want, wherever you want it. Desire will come true. Okay. If the deva or solar angel is no longer attracted by matter, then there is no identification, and objective life is no longer the law of his existence. That would just say, then he can begin to live the laws of the soul, which extricate him, abstract him from matter. Do you feel you are living the lives of the soul? Do you feel that you are in the process of being extracted from matter? You feel you're being pulled out of matter. Like a good tooth extraction. You're being pulled out and given a new home, which is not like preoccupied with stuff of the physical plane, stuff of the etheric, astral, or mental plane. Stuff is stuff. And then if you're preoccupied with stuff, you forget who you are. And so many of us for many years have forgotten who we are. We've been through cycle after cycle of soul amnesia. We have amnesia. We have forgotten. Now finally, the fourth initiation is what really gives this to you. So it puzzles me a little bit why he should say solar angel, because in a way, the solar angel is a huge being. It was already a man in the previous solar system. It's already gone through nirvana. And the solar angel is not fooled by any of this, but I think it's that part of the solar angel which is identified with the man's consciousness. That's what he's talking about. So in a way, the man is that part of the solar angel, and that man can be fascinated by stuff for millions of years, or can finally begin to outgrow it. Now, I'm sure we all get the sense that in a way, we've had enough of stuff. Of the secondary thing, right? We want now ourselves. This ourself becomes the object of our desire. It's a different thing.
Then it won't be so difficult to be in one of those 24 new rooms.
In one of the okay then. No.
Abstracted from matter.
Absolutely.
It's much easier just to go there.
He says very little. I read the story of Ramakrishna, who was, fourth or fifth degree initiate in India, probably fourth degree, almost a master. His room was so entirely spare. He had a bed, he had a little chest, he had his shoes, maybe, clothes, bed, little chest, that's it. And say, wow, what a dull life. Look at how the world is so full of wonderful variety. Well, these people find that incredible variety inside themselves.
Inner realms.
Inner realm abundance. Inner realm abundance. And they abstract themselves from the outer preoccupations in order finally to achieve that inner realm abundance. It's just like Master Morya says, look at the yogi in the cave. He's just sitting there. Look at all the activity in the world. Then Master Morya says, but the yogi is the most active. He is everywhere. His mind is everywhere. He's participating in everything. He can send his spirit out to be in innumerable places, maybe even many at a time. So who is active and who is inactive? He's sitting there in a state of great activity, outwardly motionless. So we have to readjust our views here. For people who want to run around on the merry-go-round of life, these new schools will not yet be attractive. For those who are willing to give up many of the preoccupations in a deeper inner search, then the new schools will be attractive. So, these things, I'm not just speaking in the abstract here, because people like ourselves who are studying these things, these decisions, we will be faced with these decisions, which way we want to go. And it'll be right there on the astral plane that we'll have to make a decision. It won't be about good and bad, it'll be about good versus really good. See, the quality of the decision will keep on rising.
I think already many of us make the decision of where to put our resources. Is it to continue on with this, or
exactly.
It would be so much easier not to do it.
Right. From one perspective, this is the hidden world. Nobody believes in it. Nobody can prove much. You're putting your money in that. Everybody thinks you're crazy. We know that story. I look at the faculty members and students of the Morya Federation. Years and years, nobody's paying. They're doing all this work, 20 hours a week. whatever. Why? It looks bizarre. But they have inner motives about inner possibilities that can be achieved in this way. So it all depends on your sense of values, really, doesn't it?
Yes.
And remember what is said of the first ray. The preservation of values is the goal of the initiate on the first ray. First ray, preservation of values. Get your values straight. I think we're all, Christ says, I come to bring not peace but the sword. That's going to be the discrimination between values. And it's already in process right now. So anyway, instead of identifying with all the outer stuff, this type of solar angel, human being, egoic lotus, he identifies himself with quality or energy and becomes the expression of the divine attributes. Well, you've heard this statement. The soul is the quality of life. Right? Life, quality, and appearance. Life, first ray. Quality, second ray. Appearance, third ray. The soul is the quality of life. Objectivity may then ensue, meaning you might take incarnation as a voluntary offering to the group, to the good of the group or planetary existence. But even though you're incarnated, identification with the separated form is no longer the case. And that's why I begin almost every meditation reminding us, are we separated in consciousness from the form we have? I have a body, but I am not my body. I have emotions, I am not the emotions. I have mental thoughts and things, but I am not those thoughts and things. Roberto Assagioli said, do that every day. He said that is what he calls psychological prophylaxis, meaning you are purifying your psyche, and you will be clean if you do that. Otherwise, you're all entangled. I've also given you the analogy of the clingstone peach and the freestone peach. Two types of peaches in the world. And when you bite into the clingstone peach, you got this pit that has all of this pulp, and you can't get it out. It's just stuck to all the fruit. It's stuck, and then comes the freestone peach. You cut into it, the pit just falls right out, and you just eat the peach. It is free of all the pulp. Now, where is your consciousness? Are you free of the pulp, or are you still clinging to the pulp? And I ask myself that all the time too. So when I do meditations, I don't care what I start with. I always start by disidentifying with everything I normally think I am, because that's the only way I can be clean and free to begin this inner process. It might take a while before it just happens just like that. Okay, so you're not identified with everything that's around you. That's the first step. And it's called, by the interesting term in the Bible, in the world, but not of the world. In the world, but not of it. That's what it means. The human vehicle then created is as much a thought form, in this case, as any other particularized idea, and the greatest act of conscious magic is to be seen. So what DK has done in this little paragraph here, he's talked about two kinds of creation. One is where a man creates a thought form, and the other is where a soul creates its energy system. And he switched back and forth between them quickly, and you just have to follow him. He's saying, you are a creation of your soul. And so, is this soul, this inner you, attached to your instrument, to the instrument you have become, or is it free? And you can ask yourself that every day, all the time, even at this very moment. Where are you right now? Presumably, I think, you are in your mind. Mostly. Right now. You're not particularly in your astral vehicle, and provided we don't go to 3 o'clock in the afternoon without eating, you won't be in your physical vehicle. But, your consciousness is here. Is it using the mind, or is it somehow attached with the mind? That is a question. Okay, all other magical creations are subsidiary to this. Now, the highest form of magic is done by the master, and this is what he creates. You know this term. He creates a Maya Virupa, a vehicle of Maya. This is what he creates, a vehicle of Maya. Okay. So, if he says, I want a body, I create it. What does he use? Kriyashakti. You know, right here, right here. It shows you how a master creates right there. Right there on the monadic level is a power called Kriyashakti, materializing the ideal. So he becomes a monad, and he's able to say, I need a body now. Boom. I create it, and matter appears around it. And I look just like I did when I took the 5th initiation, but it's a will-created body. It's not born through process of generation. It's a mind-born body. Have you ever heard of the secret doctrine of the mind-born sons? Prajapati, mind-born sons. These higher beings, how are they created? It's not like father and mother, is it? They're created by the power of emanation, mind-born. Solar angels are created that way. Planetary logoi are created that way. Solar logoi are created that way. All emanation, mind-born. And we have to look forward to that. One day we will be created in that way too. We will create through the power of the mind. Okay, through manipulation of negative and positive energy, thus bringing them to a point of equilibrium, that's solar fire, before informing them, the perfected body of the adept is formed. So this is the hint about the Maya Virupa. The master manipulates negative energy, positive energy, and then brings them into equilibrium, and then enters them, and you have the perfect body of the master. Perfect body of the master. Not a born body in the usual sense, but reflecting perhaps their last born body in a more ideal way. Now, all magical work on the astral plane has to be along the line of equilibrizing activity. So Libra and Venus are involved, and the distinctive nature of this type of work on the 3 planes and the 3 worlds might be summed up as follows. So now he's going to say, this is magical work, and this is how we summarize the magical work in 3 phases, and it involves particularly equilibrizing. Now, what does equilibrizing mean?
Equaling out.
Equaling out, balancing,
Yeah.
somehow restoring equality to the 2 poles. Why would work on the astral plane be related to equilibrizing energy? Why would this equaling out be related to the astral plane particularly? Look at its position, okay? What is the position of the astral plane relative to? Just think of positive, negative, and...
Yeah, it's the halfway point. It's sort of like between the lower and the
Exactly,
higher.
exactly. It is the central of the 3 lower planes, hence is associated with that neutral form of equilibrizing electricity. It's not positive electricity, it's not negative electricity, it's equilibrized electricity. Now take a look at the 3 fires. What are the 3 fires with which we are dealing in cosmic fire? Obviously, they are friction,
And
electric. Okay, so the middle position is always the equilibrizing position, isn't it? So in a way, solar fire is equilibrizing fire. This neutral electricity is equilibrizing electricity, and there's a definite connection. The soul must infuse the astral plane with the effects of solar fire. And then all of our heated emotion will turn into warm emotion. And then from a planetary point of view, planet X will go to planet Y. What will these be? In other words, on the astral plane, it used to be this planet, now it's this planet. So heat goes to warmth, and how will we describe that? Planet X goes to planet Y. What is the planet of heat? What is the planet of warmth? Venus. Mars will go to Venus on the astral plane. See, Mars has become Venus.
Are there sons of mind walking around now? I mean, do you think they're manifest?
Well, yes, of course. And some of the masters already have contact with certain people, even physically. Okay? But think of it. Who are you as a monad? Your most essential nature on the monadic plane. Where did that come from? Mama monad and Papa monad? Probably not, right? This, in other words, you are an emanation. Now I'll show you the map. It goes like this. Okay, come on now. I always have to. I never know exactly the order in which they are found. Oh, I had it there too. All right. There. That's the story of the mind-born sons. You see what I'm driving at? How that works? Notice, from one comes 7. From another little one comes a still smaller 7, and on and on and on. There's none of this. There's only mind-born. That's where you as a monad came from. Mind-born. So all of us are mind-born monads waiting to express in the outer world that which we are in the inner world. And when we become a conscious monad, which we are not really yet because we're so far down here, immersed, we will be able to use the power of the monadic plane. And I just showed us what it was, Kriyashakti, on the monadic plane, to create mind-born projections. We are mind-born right now. It's just that we don't know it. And we walk around as if we are bipolar beings. Or, well, we're all a little bit bipolar, I think. So we have to take the duality, which we think we are, I'm a man, you're a woman, all that, and realize that my old teacher used to say, there comes a time in the life of every disciple when he must stop reproducing his own kind and begin reproducing himself. And I thought, that really stuck with me, and now I see where it fits. This is about self-reproduction. This is about yourself emanating out into the lower worlds, the many different representations of yourself. Well, that's what God is, isn't it? We're just at the lower end of a God here somewhere. God.
We could be like Mr. Smith in the Matrix.
Okay, well that's right. He's a program, right? Well, okay, he's a program.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Must have been someone's thoughtful.
He's also the Elf King in Lord of the Rings. There he was the good guy, and otherwise the bad guy, Mr. Smith. But that's it. There's self-replication. That's what we're talking about. So this is very interesting, isn't it, in these occult worlds, how eventually we will be distributed in space through the power of mind. God is distributed throughout space. There's only one God, and everything is one of those little lines coming from this great being. Now, in this little philosophical model is the difference between the life and death of civilizations, and all the battles about religion will be fought over this issue. Some religions will say, here's God, here's man, there is no line. In other words, God is not man. God is God, man is man. And emanationists of this nature will say, God is man. And that's where the battle lines will be drawn right there. Because if you are God, through emanation, you are divine, you are perfect, you are full of power, you have everything you need, you are everything you need, and in some way, you can't be any better than you are. You have absolute divinity within you. But, if you are not God, you're just a humble little, expendable creature that can just be wiped off the face of creation by the whim of an all-powerful God who is different from you. And on that philosophical distinction, the battle lines will be fought in the next hundreds of years, maybe next 100 years. It will be between dualistic religions and truly unitive religions. And the dualistic religions will be ruled by Mars, and they will want to kill you, and the unitive religions will be ruled by Venus, that will want to amalgamate and cooperate and unify with you. So an idea can make a big difference in how we behave.
And both are the manifest at the moment, doesn't it?
It's happening right now.
Yeah.
You can see it. And that's why, of course, I bring this forward. You know, the religions of Mars, they're very vigorous, but they don't think out of the veil of illusion, because they don't reach the Buddhic plane. The best they have is this manipulation of manas. That's as far as they can go. And Mars is manas. Mars is every aspect of the physical, of the personal form. The mystical traditions within these religions, ruled by Venus, by Jupiter, by Neptune, they already know what illusion is. They know what glamour is. And they don't want to fight about non-essentials. They want to emphasize the unity. And that's why that's why people like Baha'is are never safe inside of countries where sixth-ray religions dominate, because they seek the unity, and the others are operating under Mars and seek duality, to keep the duality clear. You know, the saved, the non-saved, the elect, the lesser citizens, all that. Our God, your God, it's all Mars. And if we don't outgrow Mars pretty soon, Mars will do us in. So, yeah.
What about the Mars who is ruled of Scorpio as the esoteric ruler?
Well, okay, then what you would have is inner jihad instead of outer jihad. And your opponent would be all of your own vices. It would still be dualistic. There's no way to make Mars non-dualistic. Mars is dualism. It's the sharp cleavage between this and that. And that's why Venus is just a higher planet than Mars at the moment, right? And that's why, you know, women who are the representative of Venus have much more of the solution in this world than men. And that's why, with Libra being so strong in the planetary horoscope now, ruled by Venus, it is the women, says Master Moya, who are bringing in the new age. It all adds up, doesn't it? And when you look at these kinds of classes all over the world, the number of women is 80%, the number of men is 20%, under the most favorable circumstances. Well, you know, that's how it goes. We have just a little more here.
We like our 20%.
Our nice 20%. Nice 20%. Okay.
Does that have anything to do with that there are more women attending the universities at the moment? And yesterday I heard over the news that there are now more women participating in the marathon than ever. And running. In other words, the women are coming forward these years.
Yeah, exactly. Of course it's so, and they have to assimilate a certain amount of Mars to do that, and obviously the balance would be if the men could assimilate the Venus part. See, all that can happen under Libra. So, at one point DK says, don't worry about it. Libra is getting stronger in the planetary horoscope, so there's no cause for undue concern. Apparently Libra, the sign of peace, the spirit of peace, the prince of peace, all of this is very favorable if we can just get through these next few years. That's the key. Next few years, that's the crisis. So anyway, equilibrizing, that's what we've been talking about. So anyway, the work on 3 planes might be defined as possible, as this way. On the mental plane, the positive force of the solar angel. Now look, is the solar angel at work here? Who's the real creator inside you? See, who does it start with? When you get a bright idea, where did it come from? Who starts this going? The solar angel, remember, is a returning Nirvani from a previous Maha Manvantara. Has been through all the initiations, has been a human being long time ago. Solar angel starts it going. Solar angel knows the plan. On the mental plane, the positive force of the solar angel drives, that's a first grade word, the substance needed into the correct form. Okay, on the astral plane, the equilibrizing force of the solar angel gathers the needed material and energy from all directions and builds it into the necessary astral sheets. Now, the form building aspect of divinity, which aspect is it? Form building? First, second, or third? Which aspect of divinity is form building? The manipulation of materials is ray 3, but the actual magnetism of building the form, cement, the glue, the magnetism, second aspect of divinity. Form building aspect. Let me make a differentiation here for you. Matter, third aspect. Form, second aspect. And the power to make it all happen, first aspect. Does that make sense? Because look, matter is just stuff. That's the third aspect. But you know the old saying, God geometrizes? Right? So God geometrizes, meaning God takes matter and builds it into geometrical forms. God arranges matter spatially. Second aspect. What is one of the great names of the second ray Lord? You know this. You know this. It's a very relevant name. Let's go to page approximately, let's say 66.
Is that why they talk about sacred geometry and why the Masons were so absolutely into it?
Take a look here. This is the name for the second ray Lord.
Oh.
The great geometrician. So Plato, geometry, second ray, all of that. And remember, the seventh ray supports that. The seventh ray works with the second ray in this. Seventh ray people are very good at geometry. They have a great sense of spatial arrangement. So that is the equilibrizing part of the solar angel. Now what we are learning here, we are speaking of the solar angel in incarnation. Really, of the solar angel as man. That's really what we're talking about. On the astral plane, the equilibrizing force of the solar angel gathers the needed material and energy from all directions and builds it into the necessary astral sheet. So basically, this is magnetic power to pull things together so that you can work with them. In other words, second ray people, they say, are magnetic. What does that mean in practical terms? See, like if you're, third rate type, always thinking, sometimes people just have enough of that. And first rate types, look, I'm the one alone, get out of here, I'm just me. So there's a certain amount of that repulsive, dispersive force with the first ray. But when it comes to the second ray, they do attract around them those with whom they can work. And they, if they do it right, they'll do it in geometrical form too. They will form well-organized, cohesive groups, especially if the seventh ray helps them. Okay, on the physical plane, the negative force of the solar angel is all that is needed to gather the desired etheric substance. Okay, by this I mean the form has now achieved a vitality and distinction of its own. So in a way, I think this is like astral vitality, the plane whereon the vital power must be sought. And distinction, this is mental. Okay, this is mental distinction, mental outlines of the form. So it's got everything it needs, so that no aggressive action emanating from the egoic center is required to continue the work. The note or vibration of the form will pull in all that's needed. So in other words, what he's telling us, that the soul is aggressive on the mental plane and somewhat aggressive on the astral plane, but non-aggressive on the etheric plane. The solar angel is non-aggressive or assertive on the etheric plane. Let's see, etheric plane. So look, what is all this telling us? That when we are magicians, we've got something else working in us, with us, right? The solar angel is always working in the magical process. We're liable to forget this. We're liable to think, oh, I'm doing this. And we forget that we have to hold the hand of the greater creator while we are doing this. Otherwise we lose touch. And we lose our touch. And what we create then is just ugly compared to how beautiful it could be if we hold the hand of the true creator.
Well, it's a bit sort of, if it be thy will, really, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's thy will. Now, there's a lot of thys up there. The first thy is the soul. Then there is the Master as thy. And there's the Christ as thy, and Sanat Kumara as thy. Ultimately, for our purposes, Sanat Kumara. Thy will, Father of this planet anyway, planetary logos, thy will be done. So, and then of course what you begin to understand as you go higher and higher is that thy is really my. There's no difference. If I say thy will be done, and I'm talking about Sanat Kumara, I have to realize that the essential life of Sanat Kumara is none other than the essential life of what I appear to be, or you, or anyone else. There's only one self, and all the thys are really my's. But again, you could be burned on that one, because people are so determined to make sure that God and man are not seen as equals that they call it heresy if you say that God and man are essentially identical. That is the big battle. Some people call that pantheism, and it's like a dirty word. Pantheism. Pan means everywhere, and theos is God. God everywhere. Pantheism. But if you study philosophical occultism, you are ultimately a hylozoistic pantheist. If you tell that to your enemy, it will confuse him and you'll be let off. Hylozoistic pantheism is what you are studying. God in all things. Okay. So I think we have maybe taken this. We're about to begin the white magic section on it, and since it's already 12:30, I don't want to launch into this until we come back. Now, actually, what I've decided to do. We will have Lona. We will have Ella, maybe, if she stays so long. Are we expecting anyone else? I'm just looking at the choir. That's all. I'm just trying to see.
Not enough for a choir.
No. Carry on with the work.
I didn't really ask for permission. I was just asking for the count of the choir.
Ella Osterman will be in a couple of days.
Yeah, Ella Osterman. A couple of days, not tomorrow.
Tomorrow morning.
And also Lona tomorrow morning.
Yes.
Okay, that's good. So that's 2 more choir members.
Yeah.
See, I look at you in different ways.
What about the other Ella?
Ella, she had to go to the United States unexpectedly,
Oh.
so she can't join us. And we have, well, actually, what I was thinking of doing, which maybe could inspire you, I would like to dedicate this ritual to Karen. She loved those songs in Pisces a lot. So we're going to do some songs from Pisces. We'll see how many we do. Actually, I have quite an ambitious program laid out for you. But if worse comes to worse, we can always have Finn come in here and sing. I'm sure that will make a difference. And actually, the other doctor is a musician, Michael. I mean, I wonder if we could... I'm scrounging now. I'm trying to bring in all the potential singers that are around here. Because I would like this kind of as a service that, honors Karen for something she loved, and I think, it could be a good motivating factor. So I stayed up choosing some Pisces songs for us to do. But there are a few of them. Now, Eric is a singer. Aren't you, Eric? You can make up for several, can't you? Hey, remember, I've told you this before, but you haven't taken me seriously. If you ever want to be a planetary logos, you're going to have to learn to sing. And also conduct choirs, because planetary logi are busy conducting heavenly choirs. You just have to do it. There's no way around it. So this is a good place to start.
Well, maybe talent. A little bit of talent would help.
Oh, talent can be...
Yes, I mean, it's all right for you. You're talented in that way.
Now let's examine this proposition. Talent is something that is homegrown.
Oh.
Like homegrown terrorists, homegrown talentists, You basically, what you do is you set an intention to want to do something. And then in several lives, it just unfolds, you see. So if you desire something enough, it will happen. You get to work on it in the heaven worlds, where you build up quality in Devachan, So then you emerge in your next life with more talent than you had when you left. Is that convincing? Anyway.
Now send forth the thought form.
Absolutely.
Give it energy.
Absolutely. Okay. Is everything okay, or is the computer suffering? Are we all right? So you keep your ears open, and if you hear anybody that can carry a tune, you just get them in here. And we will have the forces and the resources we need to do what we have to do.
Are we going to wait for the other people from the group to come tomorrow?
Not before we sing. No. We're going to start today such as we are. You know how the Tibetan always says, take yourselves as you find yourselves and get to work. So here we are, as we are. And if worse comes to worse, I'll have Tuija fly in from Finland just to join the chorus. I'm sure that will help. Okay.
You have faith.
We all have faith. So we're going to start at 2:00. That gives you time to take a walk and hunt up some singers. And then we'll have some music at 2:00, and then we will go on and finish this section somehow. Okay. Goodbye. Farewell. Bravo.